welcome to Unraveling the Brain. I'm Dr. Lauren here with Josh. Josh has made a couple great progress leaps here in the last couple of weeks, and I just kind of want to have him share his story, things that have been beneficial for him in this clinic, but then also outside of this clinic, and just kind of want to talk about your experience, your life, man, and like first of all, how'd you end up here?
Great question. I was seeing some chiropractic care here in West Des Moines. They had done some great work over a 6 to 8 week period, really leveling my hips, getting my neck realigned, and then I plateaued. And as much as they kept trying to make adjustments, my body would not allow it. One of the chiropractor doctors there had recommended that I get transferred to this clinic. I had no idea what that meant, but as I started doing research into functional chiropractic care, I was intrigued. And so this was my next step to fixing my spine, getting back to a mode of, I'll say, levity. But I'm still trying to get back to walking.
Yeah, so that's the goal, right?
Yes.
So one thing we've been really working on is being able to straighten your legs out, just like get that mobility back. And just to put things into perspective, and no one is their diagnosis, but you've been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And so multiple sclerosis, for people that don't know, it's an inflammatory condition. It's an autoimmune condition where the immune system's going after the protective insulating coating of the nerves. And so that could be within the brain, spinal cord, peripheral nerves. It's against what's called the myelin sheath. So like the hard wiring in the building here, those have insulation around those wires and keep things from short circuiting. And so folks with MS, they have autoimmunity where their immune system's going after that protective coating. And so the way that's manifested for you is mostly physical, just like some spasticity in your limbs, especially your legs where things get really tight and cramp up on you. And so that's kind of limited you from standing,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the physical side of it. I think the cognitive side, which I've noticed more so in the past week, I've had better sleep.
Sweet.
So prior to, I'd be lucky to get an hour and a half to 2 hours at one shot. Then I have to get up and move, rotate, and I have this chronic hip pain. So after that first full week, that chronic hip pain had subsided. I still haven't had it back yet, so let's hopefully continue on that path. But being able to sleep again has allowed me to be better at work. I'm not missing as many appointments. My memory is better. My mood is definitely better. And that's just after 3 weeks. The physical aspect, right? Like being able to straighten my legs was an adrenaline rush because that both of them straightened probably hasn't been done consciously for 2 years. That was a huge relief. And that was progress. Even prior to this attempt the past 3 weeks, I could get one leg straight at a time. But then I'd have to rotate to the other one because of my hips. So the fact that we could get both of them down and multiple times is, to me, it's huge success.
What would you attribute that success to? Like, what do you think is kind of tipping things in your favor in a positive way?
So the newer things that we've tried in the past 3 weeks that I was exposed to is definitely the laser therapy. Being able to get into the tissue, whether it's my back, my brain, my muscles. I've done stimulation therapy before. I've done physical therapy. Occupational therapy comes out. And I've done those before. So the one outlier here is the lasers. I think it's a combination of everything, but without that ability to penetrate, I'm plagued by inflammation, and maybe that's something that a lot of folks don't know about MS is that pain, and that mobility or the lack thereof, a lot of that inflammation just wreaks havoc. And that's something that you hear about, and people talk about being inflamed or dealing with inflammation. I don't think they really understand what that means. I don't think I did until a few years ago. And other than trying some therapeutic turmeric and ginger, some herbal supplements, there is really nothing that really fights off that inflammation. it is until you told me about the laser.
And we manage a lot of autoimmune conditions. A lot of kids we see have neurological autoimmunity. So like when you came in, like we don't see a lot of adults currently with multiple sclerosis, but I'm like, man, I know what I want to do. I know where to start. I know like what's going to be beneficial. And the research shows too, and I even sent that to you on our first day, just some research supporting photobiomodulation, using therapy lasers to calm inflammation. When neurons are inflamed, they're less stable. When they're less stable, they fire on their own. But when you calm that inflammation, you create stability within the nervous system, decrease that spasticity, cognitive protection. Like there are so many layers of benefits to it. So I'm glad to see you start benefiting from everything we've done here, just through an exam and just like working on just different movement techniques and different ways to mobilize your body, stimulate the brain, and then like all the while complementing that with the laser is really, I think, what makes this place different, special and different. And you've done a lot just on your own, just like diet and lifestyle, and like you're incredibly active. Like you told me your whole place like is set up. It's basically a gym. It's like a therapy center for you. And so like you have like laid a lot of groundwork before coming here to be successful. And so like pat yourself on the back for that, man, because like so many people just like throw in the towel, and like that's not your style. That's not your style at all. And so like for me to get to work with you like that, it's just like a true honor, man. I get goosebumps. Like every day I go home, I just think about Josh. Like I just think about like things we've talked about and things that you've taught me and like things that we've tried and like just the step-by-step improvements that we've seen. And like I get choked up, but like it's just like it fires me up to come to work every day and see you on my schedule and be able to work with you for those 2 hours. Like it's gratifying, man. And so I appreciate you and appreciate you giving me and Infinity a chance to work with you.
Well, I can't say enough. Even yesterday, I had tears in my eyes. It was emotional, adrenaline rush, and just getting them both straight at the same time, it was huge. Definitely emotional. When you've been through, I would say, majority of the other people that end up here, this is not their first choice. It's almost, desperate search for research. Who can help me? Who can help me with this? And I think that one thing I appreciated about even that first week, it wasn't a single approach. It was this omni-channel. You're going to try these 5, 6, 7 things, and let's see if we can move the dial. Let's see if we can get anything in your body to change. And clearly it did in many ways. So although I was still learning, and I'm still learning about the effects of the lasers and inflammation, diet and exercise are important. Everybody's body is different. I think one thing I've learned through my journey is probably that when people talk in ranges, test results, like you're in an acceptable range, that's not okay. Because every body is different. So clearly you're much taller than I am, much better shape, right? So no, man, your level,
you're a beast.
But your level and your range is going to be different than mine. And so I think when we accept the general, you're in an acceptable range. And I think that comes from more of at least the results I've seen on the Western medicine side. Well, your test results are fine. You're within an acceptable range. But if you look at the body, every body is different. So why is that acceptable? And sometimes you're at the low end of a scale or high end of a scale, but that's kind of an indicator. And over the years, I've noticed a lot of singular responses to my problems or my inability to move, my sleep habits, my cognitive function. There was always a pill at the end of it. And at one point, I was on an extreme amount of pharmaceutical pills, upwards of taking 20 plus a day on my regimen, and it was doing more harm than good. And I think when you said you guys were peeling back the layers, I think that's the important thing, is not name it and blame it. Don't, it's MS, blame everything on MS. MS is the symptom or a group of symptoms of a bigger underlying condition. Although the cause may not be known yet, and there's multiple ways it manifests.
Sure.
MS from one patient to the next is different. So your approach is different. But I think it's what I really appreciate is that coming in here, you didn't give me one option. It was day one, you had me lit up like a Christmas tree, you know, twist and turn in funky positions. And then even that first day, I noticed just some feeling, some sensitivity in my fingertips, my toes, which was relief. And that inspired me to come back day 2 and then week 2. And week 2 was probably the most gratifying just because I haven't had that type of progress in 20 years.
Momentum, man. Momentum.
So I can't thank this group enough. And I think the only other thing that I share with my friends and my close circle is I felt like I was living under a rock. I do a lot of my own research. No path from my doctors out in town, neurologists, have ever mentioned anything about this laser therapy. I know Dr. Josh was talking about some other additional therapy for MS, and I'm just more frustrated that out of all my doctor's visits, none of this has ever come up as an option. And I get it because no path to insurance leads here, but if I look at the amount of money I've spent in my lifetime on insurance and following that Western medicine path, it's mountains compared to what I'm spending here to actually get true healing. I think that's probably the difference of care, and we talk about healthcare versus sick care. To me, this is healing. This is healing care. Ever since I've walked in here, every day I can say that there's a benefit or there's something different. I'll settle for different even if it's not a benefit just because we move the needle.
Change, yeah.
And so my mood is way better, and I'm more optimistic about next week or the following week. I think the education about the laser, about what it does for you and how to apply it is huge. I feel like I have some control, even though it may be an illusion, about my own future. And I think with your guys' approach, there's not an end. You'll keep trying different things to see if it works. Even today, right? Some of the stuff we were doing, I was relaxed. I could have taken a nap and fallen asleep. That's not normal for me. So I'm just excited that there's change. And I can feel my body getting stronger and it's responding better physically. And I know that that's helped with my sleep. Last night was probably close to that 6-hour total mark. But there was a stint in there where I slept almost 4 hours straight, which hasn't happened without being, in a surgery, right? I haven't slept that way for probably a good 2 years.
That compounds, like, in a good way. Well, one of the things I want to touch on too is like you have a laser now, so like I want to equip you with things that you can do while you're working, like when OT comes, when you're with your PT, things that you can do on your own, your other providers can utilize to maximize their therapies. Like I'd love to see you forever, but I don't want to obligate you to come here forever. I want to give you enough momentum, equip you with the skills, establish like a maintenance phase, like we're a wellness phase where we're just like checking in, adapting your plan, keeping you moving forward, but like really arming you with as much as you can do as possible at home. And so I thought it was cool that you brought another provider in here just to learn and observe. I wasn't here that day, but just like we Dr. Josh has like awesome courses where he teaches different types of providers, the methodology, the principles of what we're doing, ways to approach care, set up care plans, use technology. And like we have people who come here all the time to learn, because like the things that he's put into place here and the staff that he's put into place here, the technology that is utilized by Infinity it's not normal. Like it's not, you don't see this place everywhere. And so like when you said, no one knows about this place, and that's often the case. Like it's kind of hard to find those diamonds sometimes. And we have, strong social media. A lot of people see videos and things like that, but how do you want to see things change? Like just not just with you, but like just like the system and like the approach and like the first step for people that get a diagnosis. Like if someone goes in, they get diagnosed with MS today, what would you do? if you had a time machine and gone back?
So I would have loved to have been able to look at the landscape and looked at potential viable options for treatment. And what they give you instead is like 3 pharmaceutical choices, or nowadays I think they have almost 10 different choices for MS. But none of them actually stop the disease. It's just basically allowing you to live longer, healthier is what the goal is. But all it does is just a Band-Aid. And instead, if we looked at the landscape and recognized how much diet plays a role, being metabolically healthy, your activity, your environment, and also when you look at maybe secondary options, which would have been more of your chiropractic care, your laser therapy, or stem cell therapy, that should have been in my first options. And I spent
ASAP
14, 15 years on the different pharmaceutical drugs, and I still ended up in the same spot that we were trying to avoid when I found out I was diagnosed. And so even though I've done everything that they said to do, I followed their path, and it ultimately led me to the wheelchair. When I started to take back some of that, I removed the pump. I removed myself from all the pharmaceutical medications, changed my diet, which fixed my stomach, also helped not being on the pharmaceuticals. And within a few months' time period, life changed for me. A light bulb kind of went off about other options. I feel like I went down a rabbit hole for a while because whatever search engine you're using, you're never going to find a place like this. It leads you down a path of stuff that's predominantly out there, which is from a pharmaceutical company. The treatment options, they don't. To me, it's not really treatment. It's more of like a Band-Aid. Like, this will help with this concern, or we have a pill for that, right? And that's how I ended up on my pharmaceuticals. Instead, if you want to change it, go back to the beginning. So if somebody is diagnosed, what are truly all the options that are available? And even if some of them are more herbal based or some of those are more generic, that's okay, because it should be based off the individual. And I felt like I was just a number. I was, right? And you have MS, pick one of these medications and start your journey. I've done that. And I felt like slowly, and I was losing part of myself. I was still trying to exercise, still trying to diet. I just never got to the underlying cause. And ending up here, I went back through my history, my family's history, and I didn't have the options. Like, this may have been an option 8 years ago when you guys started. I never heard about it until 3 weeks ago. And that, to me, I've searched for things like this. And then I finally found, if I specifically search keywords on like DuckDuckGo, I get different results than what you do from Google or Safari.
Really? So different browsers take you to give you different information.
Yep.
That's wild. So you're a Marine, so thanks for that, man.
Thanks for
you're
your
badass.
support.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about like fellow soldiers, like other just chronic illnesses that you have heard about from guys that you were in with.
Yeah, so I did a good job of connecting with other veterans that were in during the same time I was. And in the early 2000s, I got mobilized to active duty, and we were preparing to go overseas. And so one of the many things they do is making sure that you're getting back in shape, you're ready to go, and then they load you full of vaccines. And overseas, one of them that they do is anthrax. And so you have an anthrax initial shot, and then every 6 months for 3 different shots, you have boosters. I remember getting the shot. It was painful. It felt like a protein shot, like it was live, living in your arm. I got a little sick afterwards, nothing big. But the same thing happened after the booster shots. So that was just mind-boggling to me, because I've never had a shot that did that to me. After I was diagnosed, and I started reaching out to other veterans that were, some of them from my same unit, some of them were just in during the same time I was. I started noticing a lot of autoimmune diseases popping up. So Parkinson's, we'll say there's some epilepsy, there's multiple sclerosis, and a lot of them that just didn't have a name, but they had something wrong. One of the things we had in common is that we're all in the service. We're all during the same time period, and that we had all received the anthrax shots. And so I started looking and doing some more research, and I started asking other veterans that I would see at the VA or at different clinics, and that was usually the connection between us. Not that we're all veterans, right? But that anthrax shot was something that we had in common. My brother also was in the service, went overseas. He was diagnosed with the polycythemia vera, a blood disease, right? But no one in our family has had those. And so you go back to what do we have in common? Anthrax. And so I've noticed that a lot with veterans. And even in the early 2000s, the VA finally created what they called MS Centers of Excellence. Why? Why did that not happen 10 years ago? Why did it wait till then? There's some statistics out there right now that there's, I think, a 70% increase in veterans with MS over the past 10 years. And okay, that's important to know. But with the veterans, they know every vaccine they've ever received. It's all documented very well. If you were to look at this from a data standpoint and look at what are the commonalities between these veterans, at least with the veteran community, majority of them, they're all very similar metabolically healthy, right? They all have regulations that we have to fit underneath them. We have physical characteristics that we have to, right?
Tough guys, yeah.
And so that's something that compared to the civilian world where they do a study, you have no idea what the audience is like. This one, we're all pretty similar, right? Very similar diets, exercise, right? And so when you have the healthiest of healthy getting sick, that should be an indicator. I'm sure there's work into this. I'm sure someone's looking at it, whether it's something like the Epstein-Barr virus, which they found a huge commonality in. I think from the veteran community, you can carve it out and say, let's look at vaccines, right? And the importance of that is if we don't know what yet causes it, but yet the VA has a ability to do disabled, give compensation, what do they know that we don't? Why is there an incubation period? Why is there a rule that you have to have been diagnosed within 7 years of separation? Like, to me, there's too much out there that is known by some, but not the rest of us. And so it just keeps me on the journey of doing research, keeping my mind open. And not that I want to disregard Western medicine by any means, but when it comes to my personal health, and maybe yours as well, trust yourself first.
Yeah, be your own advocate. That's what you told me earlier today.
And because if not, I mean, where I would be, I have no idea, other than probably miserable. One of my last conversations with a physical medicine rehabilitation doctor was to go get counseling, get support, and just basically I need to come to terms with where I'm at with myself and the fact that I'll never walk again, right? That this is life. That was like one of the last conversations I had that it kind of stung a little bit, but it was enough, it pissed me off enough that I went off on my own. And that was several years ago, but that's when I started looking at, stem cell therapy south of the border, my health, my diet, all the supplements, the water we drink. It all plays a part.
Yeah.
But with this group, right, Infinity Health, I like that, just the name of it, right? That there is no set standard. We're going to do whatever it is that we think is helpful and see if we can get some results. So far, I've reaped the benefits of it, and I'll continue to. But as far as changing the environment out there, if there's a better way of marketing, and it's not necessarily marketing, but it's more of sharing information. I explained that one of the first things I noticed about your lobby was that everybody that was here was just conversing about how they got here, right? And most of them were from different countries. And so just to see that collaboration in your waiting room, kids are running around, the adults are talking, but they're in deep conversations about health. I understand the HIPAA to a point, but if we don't share information amongst ourselves, how do we know what's out there? We don't. And as much as I'm frustrated that I didn't know about this and it's been around for years, right? Like if I'm not talking to people out there conversing, I would have never known. But I think that's one of the things that this group will hopefully change in the future is that word of mouth podcast or YouTube videos, right? Just sometimes all people need to see is that there's somebody else out there like them, and that there's options. Because some of the things I was searching for, it wasn't specifically for MS. It would be for gait, right? It would be for balance, right? And there's been times where I finally found a video, it was a chiropractic video out there, of a gentleman that looked like me, trying to walk or trying to get moved from a chair. His body moved like mine. And it wasn't until that I'm like, okay, I get it. Somebody else actually, that body looks like mine. No idea what the conditions were, but he was at a chiropractor. And then I was talking about it with my physical therapist, occupational therapist. They had recommended a place here in town. But that's what got me started on the chiropractic care. And one of the first things they did was take an x-ray and realized that my hips were off 21 millimeters. There was also a tilt, degenerative disc disease. I had a potential scoliosis curve in my spine. My neck was off. Everything was just wrong. Within about 8 weeks of doing that, we've corrected a lot of it. But once again, without that, talking to somebody, seeing a video, right, I never would have gotten here. And so your lobby promotes that environment, and I think most of us in that community would do anything for our children. So it's not about protecting the privacy. Like, we're exposed, right? You can know anything you want to know about me as long as you help me. And most people that are here because they've exhausted every other option. And whether it's the system or their own path, that whether it failed or whether it didn't yield results, I think that's why people are continuing to come here. And most of your population that comes from overseas has got to be either word of mouth or social media. Similar to how I found my path into chiropractic care, which is what led me here.
So there's a lot to that. A lot of things to unpack.
There is a lot.
Yeah,
and each one of those I could go off on and explain some more in-depth stories. And I think for anybody that watches or listens, if you've been down a path and you don't like the results you're getting, or you're not getting answers, keep searching. And you're not searching for an actual answer as to this is the one issue that you have wrong. Because oftentimes it's underlying conditions. It could have been something that we did when we were younger, terrible health, right? And just some like intolerances to our stomachs. I don't think we talk enough about stomach health.
No.
And how it's really your stomach that feeds your brain, feeds your heart, and not the other way around. I mean, it's kind of a universal cycle, but that stomach is really a good indicator. I wish I would have listened to myself, what my body was saying a few years back. When I had gut health problems. And it wasn't until I got into functional medicine, they referred me to a functional medicine dentist. They did an x-ray, and they found out that I had fractured a tooth below the gum line. And I remember when I did it, and it had been about a year prior.
Was it infected?
Yeah, it was infected. But it was not abscess because it was right there on the gum line. So what I was doing instead was I was just swallowing bacteria. Been doing that for about a year, and my gut health was terrible. I was miserable. But I talked to a doctor who sent me to a dentist who did an x-ray, who knew exactly what she was looking for. But I'd been to a dentist a half a dozen times since then, multiple doctors, gastrointestinal side. Right? Everybody just kept searching for what's wrong. And there was always a pill to take. I just never took them. But it was, even if I would have taken them, it just would have done more harm. Come to find out it was something very simple that if you followed the actual information, probably would have led you to that sooner. And I kicked myself because my stomach was wreaking havoc on me shortly after I had a fall, and I hit my jaw. But I wasn't listening to my stomach. It was telling me the whole time, hey, there's something wrong. And I was looking everywhere else in my body but my stomach. And just, it was a several year period of being miserable. And for anybody that's ever had gastrointestinal issues, it's debilitating to your life. You don't want to go places, you don't want to go out, you don't want to eat, you don't want to be social with friends. The whole time it was right there in front of me. I think, if anything, I've learned to do better research and get multiple options. Even the chiropractic care prior to here, there was a dozen different chiropractors I saw at that clinic, which was great because every one of them had better feedback and a slightly different approach, but it led me here. And so whether it's you or Dr. Josh, every appointment's been exciting for me. We've done something slightly different. Some of the things that we do that are the same, I've noticed improvement. But from where I was even 3 weeks ago till now, I have hope again. I have progress. I've made progress. The lasers at home is probably going to be one of the most beneficial things for me, because I feel if I'm not here, I'm not taking care of myself. Even though I'm doing PT and stuff at home and I'm stretching, doing that laser at home gives me an opportunity to work on more of the areas that I have problems with. I lasered with it, off and on for probably a good 30 minutes to an hour last night, just on my legs, my knees. It gives me hope.
Gives you some control.
Yes.
And I don't think your hope is ungrounded or unwarranted. Like you said, like you might be false hope, but just what you've done in the last couple of weeks, and you work like crazy. Like you put a lot of effort into these sessions too. And so you're bought in, in whatever you do, you go for it, man. That's your style. And so for me, that gives me a lot of hope for you, because I know this guy's going to do what it takes. He does what it takes. And so it's fun, and it's an honor to be a part of it. I appreciate you sharing your thoughts, sharing your time, sharing your experience with us. I hope someone else can learn, maybe connect to this in some way. I said on the first day, I want to see you win. I just want to see you do well, man. Like I said, I think about you all the time. I go home and Josh is on my mind. I don't know if you probably forget about me when you go home, but
no.
I want to see this guy.
I might have some
excel.
Choice, colorful language about you, but it's all in good fun. And I hope that let's set a date out in the future. Let's see where we're at again. Whether it's a month from now or 2 months from now, what does that actual progress look like?
Sure.
And hopefully we'll document more of this. And I'm okay with doing some photos, just some video of what my legs did do or what they didn't do, what they can do now. Even putting my shoes on today was better. Just the simple things. Hand-eye coordination.
Yeah, it was great today, man.
Completely
so
different from even earlier this week or last week.
Yeah.
That's motivating for me, but I look forward to this place every visit. I've told everybody that I think I know about this place, and I think that's where, back to whoever's listening, I didn't know about it, and everybody I've told has no idea what I'm talking about. So just sharing of the information that's available here, I think the education piece that you guys do, from the lasers to the stimulation, all the different devices that you guys use, you're talking to me about why you're doing it, what it's for. And a lot of it is education. A lot of it's personal education. How to take better care of myself. Or when I do go home, how do I use the lasers? In which area should I use the laser on? I feel more empowered. So back to that control aspect, absolutely. I think you put me back in that driver's seat. I can't thank you guys enough.
Likewise, man. God bless you. Let's keep going.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks, everybody.